And looks at Africa, its physical geography. Our objectives are to understand the climate and biomes of Africa, identify natural resources of the continent, and analyze population distribution patterns and their connection to resources. So to begin, when we take a look at Africa, one thing we need to understand is it's one of the largest continents in the world. It is a place of very diverse physical features. The wildlife and the vegetation there is also equally diverse. So when we examine these physical features, we begin really with major rivers. And what are some of the major river systems in this part of the world? Well, it does contain two of the world's largest and longest rivers. The first one is, of course, the Nile River here. And when you look at the Nile River, one thing to understand is that, first off, when you're looking at this map, understand that it's not flowing in this direction. Keep in mind, water flows downhill. And so in this particular instance, which way is the Nile going to flow? Well, it's going to start up here in this area, and then it flows northward where it empties out into the Mediterranean Sea. And it's not just simply one single river. In fact, it's two rivers, the White Nile and the Blue Nile, that together with their different cycles of flooding, the amount of water that they discharge in the direction of the Mediterranean Sea, is what leads to these cyclical or these annual floods in the lower parts of the Nile in what is modern day Egypt. That human beings have been relying on since we started planting crops, 15,000 years ago, because they bring all this really fine silt and sediment, and they deposit it down here, which farmers have been using to grow crops. So you have the Nile River here in the north. The other major river system is the Congo River system. In this one, you're going to find all the way down in really Central Africa. So the main branch is the Congo River here, but it's joined in by other rivers, as you can see, including the Ubangi River. And this is in a very dense rainforest here in Central Africa. That just overflowing with wildlife and trees and all sorts of cool stuff down there. Also some pretty deadly stuff. So one thing you want to be careful about when you visit that part of the world is Ebola. It's a local virus, but you got some other cool stuff down there too besides deadly pathogens. So outside of the Congo and outside of the Nile River, what else do you have? You have the Orange River, the Limpopo, the Zambezi rivers down here. Those are some principal ones, as well as a river that is called the Niger River. So when you see this word, it is a soft G, Niger River. That's how we're going to pronounce that. Now, one thing that creates these major river systems are what we call basins. And basins are depressions in the earth that basically collect water from higher elevations that surround it. So Africa, it's not flat. You have a number of, pretty sizable mountain ranges, many of which are going to surround these basins. And so all that water is going to pull down here. It's going to collect, and then from there it's going to flow into the ocean. So among the major river basins that you have there, you got the Chad, the Sudan, the Congo, the Juf, and the Kalahari. Now, you also do have a number of deserts in this part of the world. You do have a really famous mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, right here. That's covered with snow. And again, just all sorts of fascinating features. Now, in terms of landforms, what are you going to find? Again, you do have a number of mountains. So you have the Kilimanjaro here. That's a really high peak, always covered in snow. Mount Kenya there. Up here in the far north, you have the Atlas Mountains, the Hagar Mountains here. You have the Drakensberg Mountains that are located far in South Africa down here. In addition to that, Africa is filled with a number of what are called escarpments. So an escarpment is basically, it seems like really flat land on top and then just this sheer drop down into a valley below. So that's traditionally made movement and transportation from one part of Africa to another kind of difficult. So if you actually go down here into the Congo Basin, you really can't just sail up the Congo Basin because you have these escarpments that, also are, the same location as rivers, and they form what are known as cataracts. So they're these really steep vertical waterfalls. And in some cases, it's not one cataract; it's a series of cataracts that you have to go up just to, go up the Congo River. Within Africa, some other features that we'll find. This is the home of some of the Earth's largest and densest rainforests. Find them down here in the Congo. You'll find them in sections up here in West Africa as well. But outside of these two pockets, really what most of Africa consists of are either mountainous areas. You have desert areas. In fact, one of the largest deserts in the world, the Sahara Desert, is located right here. And got a little bit of trivia information for you. Sahara in Arabic is that right there. That's the name whenever you're saying Sahara. And so when we transliterate it, it's spelled like this. And then we always say it's the Sahara Desert. Well, in Arabic, that word right there means desert. So what we're kind of saying whenever we say Sahara Desert is we're saying desert. So just a little neat piece of information. So at any rate, you have the Sahara Desert up here in the north. You got the Kalahari Desert down here in the south. You got the Namib Desert right here along the western coast. Pretty harsh terrain there that people do actually live in. Now, outside of your deserts and your rainforests, what are you going to find? Well, you're going to find most of this territory is actually what we call savannas. And so savannas, these are similar to what we live in here in the Great Plain. They're vast grasslands that cut all the way through Africa. And so whenever you watch the National Geographic show and you see all these massive herds of animals moving all over the place, and giraffes and elephants, that's usually where they're showing you, especially in this area right here where you get into the Serengeti, which is like a really famous savanna. Now, in terms of climates, again, a lot of people, when they think Africa, they think rainforests, but really your rainforests, again, are going to be kind of limited in scope. You're going to find them here, find them in parts here. Outside of that, again, a lot of grassland. Up here in northern, what we call sub-Saharan Africa, this is where you find what's called the Sahel. And this is a zone of transition between northern Africa up here and what we call sub-Saharan Africa down here in the south. So pretty flat area, pretty dry area. Now, when you think of the climate, when you think of the terrain of Africa, climate is going to have a major impact on human settlement. So when we look at Africa, it is one of the largest continents in the world. It is very densely populated, but where do you find most of the settlement? Well, it's going to be along the Nile River. It's going to be down here in the Congo Basin. It's going to be usually wherever you find water, or it's going to be along the coastline. So it's kind of packed in there. And it's an increasingly urbanizing city. So more and more people are starting to live in the cities. You're starting to get larger cities in this part of the world where they have, a lot of times when you see movies about Africa, shows you like the rural area where you have dirt roads, people still living in housing that's made out of, kind of like an adobe type material and thatch roofs. But if you go down to like Lagos or Abidjan or Addis Ababa, no, these are very modern cities. So when we take a look at Africa, it's a very diverse country in terms of landforms. You have everything from basins to escarpments, mountains, deserts. It has some of the largest rivers and river systems in the world there. Its climate zones. It does have some very wet, very hot, very rainy places known as rainforests, but most of the place is actually hot one part of the year and very, very dry, and then the other part of the year still hot, only it rains a lot. And outside of those zones, that's where you're going to get into desert regions.